People born before the year 2000. What was you what the actual frick when technology advanced? People born before the year 2000. Thanks for making me feel old as crap OP. To answer your question, the concept, and now the reality, of driverless cars, I don't know if I'll ever trust a computer to drive me around. When my dad got a Bell Atlantic caller ID, it blew my mind. The concept of knowing and seeing the name of the person calling your house was insane. My parents have smartphones, but they also kept their landline. My mom still yells at my dad for picking up the phone to tell telemarketers off. That's why we have call display, so you can ignore them. It's like something out of a TGIF show. The fact that the cell phone had internet, I would accidentally hit up on my LG chocolate or the NV2 and frantically hit end 50 times because I knew my dad would come to me saying, "Why are you using the internet on the phone?" It was strange when it became mainstream. Touchscreens, to be honest, I remember seeing them in futuristic movies as a kid and thinking not anytime soon. Now, they're the norm and I still don't quite understand how. Specifically when they actually became functional. When touchscreens were first coming in, they were a useless nightmare and never worked properly. The first time they worked exactly as they were supposed to was a big moment. My first iPod, I had cassette players and toted around CD players, worrying about them skipping while I walked. Then I get this square thing that I insert nothing into and can hold more than 15 songs. It's still one of my favorite gifts I've been given. Streaming music services like Spotify. Holy crap, would I have killed for something like the free tier of Spotify when I was a kid. Music on the internet. Probably starting with the first legal ways to get music online, like the iTunes store, had the lovely side effect of killing the $25 CD, so that was a bono. Growing up pre-internet, one of the biggest frustrations for me was hearing a great song on the radio and trying to decide whether or not to buy the album. You had absolutely no idea if any other songs on it were any good. Spotify could have saved me from buying so many bad albums in the 90s. Honestly, the thought of having your whole teen stage of your life posted all over the internet forever. Frick that, man. Glad I just missed all that. Now kids' lives are being posted from birth. I am curious to see what will happen when they get to be teenagers. Look man, I found this kid's mom's Facebook page and look at those dorky pictures of him as a little kid, then plaster that around as a meme. Smartphones for sure. I still forget I have a tiny computer in my pocket with access to absolutely any information I could ever need. I still remember arguing with a kid about something in class in 11th grade and having to send someone to the library to Google it. Our first microwave. No more arguments because dad's soup wasn't hot enough? No problem. Want a warm cookie and hot chocolate? No problem. Want popcorn for a TV movie that starts in 5 minutes? No problem. It was awesome. I wasn't allowed to use the stove when I was home alone until about age 10, but I could still have a hot dog or cocoa or leftovers before that due to the miracle box on the counter. Just moved into new apartment with my wife. Forgot to move the microwave the first day and recognize exactly how useful it is. I'm going to start calling it the miracle box. I found out about Google Earth and Wikipedia on the same day, 2005. It was a game changer. 3D printing pretty much blew my mind. I still barely believe we have that kind of technology. GPS. I hated having to print out directions from MapQuest. Miss your exit street with MQ? Have fun figuring it out. Miss your turn with GPS? Recalculating. The paperclip guy in Microsoft Word. Looks like you're writing a letter. Holy crap, how does it know? I miss paperclip guy. Having a song on my MySpace page. There's a place on Ocean Avenue where I used to sit and talk with you. Was born in 1995. As a kid we were always taught to be careful about revealing any personal information online. Now it's normal to post one's entire life online for everyone to see. That's the biggest what the actual frick for me. I was born in the 50s. It's been a long weird ride with a very disappointing ending. The WTF moments have been many. CDs were a big one. Vinyl albums were a pitter, would get worn and scratched by merely pulling them out of the sleeve and playing them. My wife got me a CD player and Who CD for my birthday. I played it and then she said, Watch this, and took the CD to the kitchen and spread butter on it while I gawped and tried to take it off her. Then she washed it off and it played okay. A miracle. She was pleased. The salesman showed her it could be done. Sony Walkmans, you can wander around playing your cassette tapes, recording songs from the radio. Could you believe it? The rise of computers was something to see. Computers were a work tool. Then came games. Mind blown. My simple ping pong. P was a big one too. I never knew people had sex with dogs or anything like that. It was a massive WTF. My wife has been wary of the internet since. The promise of computing was so intoxicating. All that drudge work done by secretaries and clerks was going to go. Everything looked full of promise. Robots were around the corner. A shorter working week. 30 hours 3-day weekends. To my mind it stood to reason. The rising tide of tech was lifting all boats. The progressive values of the time were obviously rational and improving people's lives. People are rational, intelligent, and progressive. Therefore any democracy would move towards a fairer world with a reduced gap between the privileged and the deprived, and that seemed to be happening. In fact, it happened for me. I've done well. But what happened for others from the day I entered the workforce until now? The trend has been reversed for those behind me. All that tech that has massively increased productivity has made things worse. It's very depressing to contemplate. How did this happen? That has been the biggest WTF. The path we wove to get where we are, given all the tech advantages. Yep. Instead of 30-hour weeks and 3-day weekends, the people who know how to build the computers now have 60-hour weeks and 0-day weekends, and all those secretaries and factory workers have 0-hour weeks and 7-day weekends and are watching the American dream swirl down the drain. Memory cards for game consoles. I remember my kid mind being freaking blown that I could take my save data to a friend's house. Cell phones. You mean they don't need a cord? LOL. I remember we got a minivan with a car phone in it. It blew my mind that you could make a call without a phone line. We were never allowed to use it because it was so expensive. I think if you told everyone in the 80s that everyone carried a video phone around with them all the time but rarely used it, instead communicated via text, everyone would be like, WTF. The biggest change I remember is no longer relying upon a landline to talk to your friends. First because it was the only way for a while, and then because it was needed to connect to the dial-up. I can't remember how many times I'd be forced off the phone because my dad wanted to check his email. I can think of two distinct moments. The first was when I was doing my masters, and one of the profs held a meeting to demonstrate this new thing called the World Wide Web. We were of course using the internet on a daily basis, but the web was something else altogether. At the time there were only a few dozen publicly accessible websites, but I remember thinking, holy crap, this is going to be huge, and immediately went to write my own website. The second was when a buddy at work told me to check out a specific network drive at work. It contained hundreds of MP3 files, an extension I had never seen before. He told me to copy what was there and rip my own CDs and upload them to the same drive. The very first MP3 I played was Head Like a Hole, so I was introduced to file sharing and 9-inch nails at the same time. Gaming console emulators. I nearly flipped my crap when my brother showed me I could play Final Fantasy VI on the computer, or when he showed me this new game from Japan that wasn't out in the States yet and it turned out to be Pokemon. Going from dial-up internet to DSL. That fax noise when you started the computer, haha. Born in 1966. For me, it was the really early internet, circa 95. Had a girlfriend studying in England, and telnetting and having live chats with her via text was amazing. After that, witnessing HD TV for the first time ever at a high-end electronics store. Bottled water. When it first started becoming popular, it amazed me that people would pay for water. Of course I was a kid and knew only that free water came magically from the faucet. This was also a time when public drinking fountains not only existed but were very common everywhere. I remember being a kid in Italy holiday to Genoa every summer. There were water fountains on nearly every corner, some of them had been in place for hundreds of years. My friend just got back from a trip, all sealed up. Torrents. They were a game changer. Going from magazines and VHS DVDs as a kid to all the free sites now was pretty mind-bending as a teenager. I remember those days. whacking it to the same titties for months until you could manage to swipe another magazine from someone, borrowing your parents' R-rated movies from Blockbuster in the hopes of a topless scene, staying up late getting up early to see the Girls Gone Wild commercials. Those were tough times, but we were happy. TVs went from cubes to panels. Huge difference. The other guy's comment makes the point. Not only did they go from cubes to panels, they went from boat anchor substitute to weightless. Okay, sure, they still have a weight to them, but like, those fancy flat screen TVs weigh like 5 pounds, maybe 10 pounds at the most. There's like nothing to them, it's amazing. I'm 60. I worked in IT for 25 years. My biggest WTF is when people use technology when it's not the best option. I was a consultant for many years and the number of small business that spent the money to implement software and hardware that was overkill for their needs was astounding. It was mostly Oracle Financials, which is expensive to buy and expensive to maintain. The other big category for me is the computerization of appliances. My refrigerator does not need a computer. Neither does my washing machine. It simply makes the appliance cost more to purchase and repair, usually resulting in stuff ending up in a landfill because it's cheaper to buy a new one than repair the old one. Finally, if there ever is an apocalypse, we are in deep crap because the knowledge that was once held in books is now stored on a computer. Remote control for the TV, home computers, Pegas. The pocket calculator was a pretty big one. They had landed men on the moon before we had that amazing tool. If you needed to know how many times 3.4 goes into 866, you had to figure it out on paper or in your head. The biggest what the actual frick disappointment is space travel. It only took 66 years to go from the Wright brothers to landing a man on the moon. Now it's almost been another 50 years and we really haven't done squat. Back in 1969 I would have expected much more by 2017. Internet was so fascinating at the time of its creation. One day I'm at a friend's house and he's like, check out this thing. We browsed for like 5 minutes. Cause at the time it was like $6 a minute or something like that. But once it became mainstream and in our schools, it was game on. Then came high-speed cable DSL-T1 connections. It was an intense time. Wikipedia. Suddenly it became so extremely easy to find out whatever you wanted. I remember when it came out there was a small report in our local newspaper treating it like some obscure niche site. There are a lot of good answers in this thread, but the biggest one for me is GPS. I remember going on road trip and having an atlas map, helping my parents navigate while they drove. The computers became widespread and we went from atlas to this printed directions that you could get from MapQuest. Fast forward a couple of years and now we all basically have a GPS in our phones built into cars. It's crazy. The Super Soaker 100 was a legit game changer. Getting cable service in 1980s went from 3 channels to 100 in the hour it took for the cable guy to hook us up. Screw playing outside, guys. In all honesty, pee on my phone. I went from spending 30 minutes downloading a 30-second clip of horrible quality to having instant access to millions of HD clips at any time, in almost any place. In my day, we watched scrambled cable pee for 2 seconds of boobs. What was the actual frick when technology advanced? Grammar and spell check being built into word processors. The fact that people born before the year 2000 is now a filtering part of a question is freaking me out quite a bit. And your comment made me realize that people born before the year 2000 is synonymous with adults of Reddit. Reddit made me think what the actual frick when OP implied that being born before 2000 was old. Homo sapiens have only existed for the last 250,000 years or so. You were born in a short time span of around 200 years where rapid technological process has been possible. Putting it all into perspective, it's incredible that we happen to be born post-technology. The difference in human life 10,000 years ago and 50,000 years ago was basically the same. Now you are constantly exposed to new ideas, new technology, and new experiences on a daily basis. We've only had the web since 1990, the internet since the 1980s, home computers since the 1970s, and computers in general since the 1950s. Cars and planes are barely 100 years old, and just 50 years ago we started putting communications satellites into orbit. Everyone alive today has lived through rapid progress in technology. You need to remember that 100 years ago physicists like Einstein, Planck, Schrödinger, etc. were formulating special general relativity and quantum mechanics. England was already in the early stages of its industrial revolution 200 years ago. The most recent burst we've seen has been from computers. Ideas such Claude E. Shannon's information didn't really exist prior to 1948. Transistors, which are universal in 2017, were only experiments at Bell Labs in 1947. Anyone born after 1960 has been born into a world already changed by computers. Before 2000. If you want a real answer, ask people. +30 yo. I was at university in 1998 and a friend of mine showed me Pamela Anderson and Tommy Lee's P video on his PC. I was like, where did you get this? And he said I downloaded it. That blew my mind. When touchscreens were in everything, that was some sci-fi crap. We could touch the content and move it and everything. I was genuinely amazed for months. I don't remember ever having a moment like that. The pace of technology has gotten faster since 2000, but it's still been gradual. Like there have been portable cameras since I was young enough to use one. It's not like putting it into a cell phone was mind-boggling. Before MP3 players, there were Walkmans. The internet was obviously unique, but it was also slow as frick when it first went really public and you couldn't do much, so it wasn't as mind-blowing as maybe some younger people think it was. I feel the same. I'm 44. I've watched a steady evolution of technology that has rapidly accelerated in the last several years, but there hasn't been a giant leap that has drawn a WTF reaction from me. You have been visited by the healthy spirit of exercise. Boy, you will burn all calories today. If you comment blessed be the health hound. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day you magnificent people.